Hello everyone, Anthony Wilson here. Welcome back to Magic Talk. As promised, I have the top 2 deck lists from the Maryland states ready to go. I'm going to talk about those today. I'm really excited about this, so let's get right to it. The first one is one of my favorites, Red Deck Wins, or Mono Red Aggro, or whatever you want to call it. This deck is really good. It's very different from what previous red decks have looked like in the past. Obviously, it doesn't have the super fast heavy hitters like Ball Lightning and Hell's Thunder and Hellspark Elementals anymore. So the deck had to undergo a lot of changes, and this guy did very well in updating the list and making it more sufficient for modern day standard. What we have here is running 2 Molten Tail Mastercores, which is a great non-red source of damage, and the regenerate ability is pretty amazing. Let's take a closer look at this guy real quick. Really good, and was definitely underestimated by a lot of people, including myself. I didn't see this guy as being too terribly good. I mean, he looked okay, but actually really good in the mono red deck here. And the regenerate ability is great. If you draw this guy early game, he comes into play for 4 mana. He's pretty good. Can't get Celestial Purged or blocked or stopped by Core Firewalker. He can block Core Firewalker, which is extremely important. Not to mention he can kill just about anything on the board with his second ability right here. So it's really, really good in my opinion, and a great addition to the red deck. The other creatures he's running 8 1-drops, 4 Goblin Guides obviously, and 4 Spike Shot Elders, which is a great card. Red deck needs a lot of 1-drops to keep the pressure on, and I think Spike Shot Elder is a great addition to the red deck. If you draw him early game, he's great as a 1-drop to swing and get in there for some damage. If you draw him late game, his ability gets even better as the game goes on, as you get more lands in play. You can activate his ability multiple times because it doesn't require him to tap. So, in my opinion, he's a great addition and very powerful card to have in this deck. Kurgan Dragonlord and Plated Geopede fill up the 2-drop slots. Both very, very strong cards. In my opinion, they're really great. Let's jump down here real quick to the other ones before we get to the mana base. We got Koth the Hammer here. Obviously, a great card. I've been playtesting with this guy, and this guy is just insane. With the limited ways to remove Planeswalkers in Standard right now, Planeswalkers hit pretty hard if you can land one. If you can stick a Planeswalker on the board, and if they are allowed to go for a turn, just a turn or two, they can be very overwhelming. They can get there very quickly, especially this dude. If he's allowed to go for 2 or 3 turns, you pop his final ability and get that emblem, and then that's it. You have a hard time coming back from that. Definitely a game winner right there. Down here, he's running some of the best burn spells in Standard. We've got 4 Lightning Bolts, 3 Burst Lightnings, 4 Searing Blaze, 2 Flame Slash. Searing Blaze is not one of my favorite cards, but we're going to jump back up here to the mana base and talk about why it works really well in this deck. He's running 25 lands. Obviously, cards like Searing Blaze, Plated Geopede, Kurgan Dragonlord, Spike Shot Elder would like a lot of lands in play. Even Molten Tail Mastercore want a lot of lands into play. In the past, old red decks have cut down to 22, 21, 20 lands even, because the casting costs of all the cards have been so low, but now their things are very different, and they require more lands to get the job done. So the deck is not as fast as old red decks, but much more solid, much more stable, and has a better late game, which I think is great. He's got a lot of utilities going on with just his mana base. 11 mountains, he's running 8 fetches that help feed the Plated Geopede. Right here, running 4 Teetering Peaks, which is also really good with Plated Geopede, but also pumps all your other dudes. And 2 Smoldering Spires, which is great for keeping the Baneslayer Angel or the Core Firewalker from blocking, or helping you get through past the Titans and whatever else is in your way to get this last bit of damage through. So Smoldering Spires is a pretty good addition here. Jumping over here to the sideboard, we see he's running the Basilisk Caller Cunning Spark Mage mashup, but it doesn't stop there. Basilisk Caller works really well with Spike Shot Elder, giving you multiple activations. Can kill Spike Shot Elder himself and kill multiple dudes with the Basilisk Caller equipped to him. So this is a great utility for red deck, and it's pretty interesting to see it in here, and it's a great addition in my opinion. Also running Tunnel Ignis. This guy's really good against the ramp decks to help get extra damage across. They're putting multiple lands into play. They put a lot of lands into play very quickly. I played against a couple ramp decks on Saturday, and This guy is just a great addition. It's either going to slow them down or they're going to take a lot of damage very quickly just from this guy, because the ramp decks have a high lack of removal. So if you can stick this guy or even two of this guy, you can almost pretty much secure your spot against ramp decks and other decks that have a lot of land coming into play. So he's a great card to have there. Also running 2 active trees and 2 Mark of Mutinies. The Threaten-esque spells. Mark of Mutiny being the one that puts the +1/+1 counters on it, obviously. Great idea is to steal your opponent's Baneslayer Angels or any of your opponent's Titans. I mean, imagine you have played a Geopede out and you steal your opponent's Primeval Titan. Swing with Primeval Titan. Go get 2 fetch lands and then fetch. Play the Geopede becomes freaking huge and can win the game by himself at that point. So this is the second place list. Very, very solid list. Very strong. I've been playtesting it. I built it. I love this list. I've made a few small changes. Mainly right here in the mana base. All the decks I've been playtesting against, I've been finding Smoldering Spires being a little underwhelming. It's not that great to have. So I made a couple changes. I replaced one Teetering Peaks with 1 mountain. So I now run 12 mountains in this. And I replaced the 2 Smoldering Spires with Valakut's, the Molten Pinnacle, which is working really well for me. It matches my style of play a little better. So that is a change that I've made there. And yeah, other than that, like I said, I've been playtesting the deck, and it's very, very good. Moving on to the first place deck list, it's Blue-White Control. Very, very different than other Blue-White Control decks we've seen in the past, and we're going to go over that right now. One of the new additions is Contagion Clasp. It's a great card for early game to shrink down some of those early game dudes, and then later to proliferate and kill those dudes, or to put extra counters on your Planeswalkers down here. Also going back to running 3 Overflowing Chalice, which is great to help cast some of your Planeswalkers a little early, get the Frost Titan in there early, get multiple activations off Luminarch Ascension. So Overflowing Chalice can help out a little bit there. Also, the creature base just contains 2 Frost Titans. Complete lack of Wall of Omens, and we're going to discuss why that is here in a minute. Also, main decking 3 Luminarch Ascensions, which is really good if you can keep that damage off of you early. Which the ramp decks don't really do a lot of damage too early. They kind of rely on doing all their damage at once. So Luminarch Ascension is a great idea there. We'll jump down here real quick to the spell suit. He's running 4 Condemns. This is kind of the replacement for Wall of Omens, which is a great idea in my opinion. And he's also running the 3 Day of Judgments. So yeah, Wall of Omens can come down and keep dudes from attacking, but in the end, you're just going to Day of Judgment anyway, and you lose your Wall of Omens. So Condemn is a much better replacement, in my opinion. And because you have these 7 spells that deal with creatures, you can use your counter magic to deal with the other spells that you're having problems with, like Planeswalkers and summoning traps and whatnot. Also running the 1 Negate, which kind of gives you like the 5th mana leak, if you will. Preordain has amazing synergy with Jace the Mind Sculptor. Being able to get rid of the 2 cards that you don't need, I think, is great, and to keep the top cards of your library new and fresh, and getting rid of the junk. The Planeswalker suit is pretty solid, pretty stable. 3 Jace the Mind Sculptor, 2 Jace Beleren, 2 Gideons, and 2 Elspeth. The new Elspeth. This chick is really tricky. I didn't notice it at first. I don't see everything either. I will admit it, but it's very, very tricky to use her abilities here, depending on what you're playing against. A friend of mine was talking to me about it, and how this works is she comes into play with 4. If you're playing against an aggro deck, or especially red decks, you immediately use her first ability to put 2 counters on her, regardless if you have any creatures in play or not, to get her up to 6 counters so that she lives. And then the next time around, you use the second ability to put the counters, to put 1/1 tokens into play. So she constantly stays above 4 loyalty counters, making her extremely difficult to kill. And you just jump back and forth between these 2 abilities. At the same time, against other decks that have a lot of utility stuff in play, like maybe the Mirror Match has a bunch of, or some of the machine decks that we've been seeing running around with Lux Cannons and whatnot, you immediately use her first ability. That way you can jump down here and use her final ability and still have her in play, because it's only 5 counters to use her last ability. 5 counters. So then you still have her after you've wiped the board, and then you can continue building her loyalty counters back up with the first ability again. So a very, very solid Planeswalker, very tricky. If you know how to use her correctly, she can be very powerful for you. The mana base, not much different here from normal blue-white control decks. The addition of Seachrome Coast. These lands are amazing, by the way. I've seen people playing with all 5 of them all day Saturday, and they're all just really, really good lands. And I was using them in my red-black deck. I ran red-black aggro at States. Did really bad with it, but the lands, those lands worked really well for me. I was never disappointed to have them, even if I drew multiples of them and they were okay. So, I approve of the new rare lands. Jump over here to the sideboard real quick. We have 2 Baneslayer Angels, because Baneslayer Angel is always going to be good. I mean, there's always going to be matchups where you wish you had Baneslayer Angel, or Baneslayer Angel is going to be good in this matchup. So, it's still in the sideboard here that you can board them in for those matches that you would like to have Baneslayer Angels. One extra Luminarch Ascension here in the sideboard. Volition Reigns is an amazing card. Can take the game-winning permanent. Maybe you're the ramp player, spent everything he had putting his Primeval Titan into play. You just drop the Reigns, take his Primeval Titan, and now he's left with nothing. Celestial Purge, really good against the red and black matchups there. Not a lot of black decks running around, but still some of the red decks. But he's got the red deck taken care of right here with Flash Freeze, which is good against not just the red decks, but also the green. A lot of the green decks, the ramp decks, the Valakut ramp. There's a lot of green decks running around, and Flash Freeze is a great utility to have against them. Into the Royal is always a great choice. It's good early game. It's good late game. No matter when you draw into the Royal, it's always a good card. The 2 extra negates in the sideboard to help deal with all kinds of other spells, and an extra Day of Judgment for when you need to kill more stuff. So this was the winning deck from Maryland State. The match was amazing. I watched the last game, and it was really good. It was such a good match. The winning play was Frost Titan. When this guy hits play, he's extremely difficult to get rid of, especially for red decks. And that was the problem, is he had no way to get rid of Frost Titan. Once this guy hit the board, it was pretty much game over because of his ability countering other abilities that target him unless its controller pays to. Extremely hard to stop this guy, and I think he's overlooked right now as far as the Titans go. This guy is amazing. Okay, he's really, really good. He's got my seal of approval written all over him. He's really, really awesome. Totally made of win. So these are the 2 decks from the Maryland State's finals. I will post the links to both of these deck lists in the description box below. Feel free to take a closer look at them. Let me know what you think about the decks and what changes you would make to either of these decks. Post it in the comment section down there. Let us know what you think of these decks. And tell us any changes you would make. If you want to play test these decks, let us know how your play testing is going and what the good and bad matchups are. So that's what I have for you today. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.